kind of kick us off by first thanking you for agreeing to do this.
Thanks for having me.
And I think what we typically, what the hell are you fuckers doing? They're really unruly tonight. I don't know what's happened. The previous speaker got them all tweaked.
I'm going to join them to be unruly soon too.
Please do. All right. So the way that, per our kind of exchange about this, what this really, the best way for us to kind of proceed is for me to kind of prompt you along. But basically what I try to do is to expose these kids to a mixture of people who are slightly in front of them and way in front of them. And I would qualify you as way in front of them, right? You are, I'm not going to tell your story. You're going to tell it yourself, but you're an incredibly accomplished entrepreneur. You've raised a bunch of money. You've built a bunch of businesses. You're still at it. I know that you have a deep love of the idea of education. I think you're a bit of a music. I think you also like music, like most of us. And so what I'd like to do is to kind of move us along, but I want to start kind of early. So I want to start a little bit about where you grew up, what mom and dad did, and I think that informs a lot of kind of where we end up as humans in our careers later. So we'll start there, and then I'll kind of shove you along if we get stuck in, say, teenage years with this crew of miscreants. We could get stuck there a while, and then we'll kind of get ourselves up into where we are now and what you're up to these days. And then I'm going to pose a couple questions to you at the end, and then open it up to the group for anything. Also, we do try to run a no bullshit zone, so you can expect some talking back. I don't know. Just historically,
you or me.
I was looking at both of you, actually. And there's others. So give them. Let's kind of go back in time to growing up, and let's start there.
Yeah. So I grew up in New York. My parents got divorced when I was 9 years old. I don't know if you guys anyone's been to New York before, but one of the things that's weird about New York is, anyone been to New York before?
They're all from the Eastern Seaboard. All these guys live in your neck of the woods.
So what you rarely find in New York, and you can tell I have a New York accent, is people that were actually born in New York. So my dad grew up in Brooklyn. My mom grew up in Brooklyn. I spent half my time in New York City and the other half on Long Island. My dad in the 1960s and 70s was a trader. He actually used to trade with Bernie Madoff, if you guys ever heard of him, biggest fraudster at that time. And my mom was one of the only mom I knew in the town that wasn't, like, at that time, like a power woman to all the women in the room. She ran a public company that she was very early to, like, the water crisis going on. And she ran a business that cleaned water. And the reason I said she's early is we're going to probably have a water crisis outside the United States in the next 10 years. And I just found it incredibly inspirational that my mom didn't take the easy road. So those were my two parents. My dad was a gritty guy. My mom was an entrepreneur, and that's where I think I got that bug from.
So growing up in New York, you were born when? What year?
I want to say I was born in 1977. I'm 48 years old. Alexa, shut up. So I was born in 1977.
And so growing up in New York, entrepreneurial parents, brothers and sisters?
I have an older brother, but I'm actually kind of like the older brother. I don't know if any of you guys have that, but that's the dynamic in my household. A couple of you guys are shaking your head because you get it. Yeah.
So your early years, it sounds like you had you both parents were hard at it, right? If mom and dad are both, if dad's trading and mom's running a company, you're not necessarily seeing a ton of them.
I didn't see them a lot growing up. Yes, I had to figure it out. You had to
figure, and so talk about that. So what as you're figuring it out in your kind of your earlier years, what lessons were you observing from them, right? Versus learning on your own?
Well, definitely one of the things I learned is that if you work hard, you can make a lot of money. But I also looked at some of the opportunities they missed, and you guys hear the term work-life balance, and I would say the biggest lesson I learned from them, which they banged over my head, is you should be a human being before a business person.
Hmm. And did they model that for you?
Yes, they did. My parents led with a moral compass and empathy. I think one of my superpowers is I'm very empathetic. I like to put myself in other people's shoes. And when no one's looking, do the right thing. That's the most important thing. It shouldn't just be a show.
Hmm. So, okay. So so mom and dad are hard at it. Where did you go to high school?
I went to a high school called Jericho High School, it's actually considered one of the best public schools in the country.
Really? And deep in the heart of the city, yeah?
That was in Long Island. So
Okay.
I never went to school in the city. On the weekends, I would go to the city. During the week, I went to a pretty small school in Jericho.
Okay, got it. And did you have, so because you come from this entrepreneurial world, did you start things early? I started my first lawn care business when I was 13. Were you starting stuff early?
Yeah, the stories you guys will hear about most people. I ran a car wash business. I started selling candy. I would buy it wholesale and resell it, and things to make money. It was always sort of in my mindset that I wanted to make money and I wanted to be entrepreneurial.
And where did you sort of find where did your interest begin to develop in the specific areas that you've spent a good chunk of your career working in?
So you guys are gonna like this. So when I was in college, and I know we're gonna get to that, I used to love doing practical jokes. And there was a show on MTV. You guys ever heard of MTV? I know it's not around anymore, but I'm checking.
Not really, yeah, but
so there was a guy named Tom Green. Mark, do you know Tom Green?
mm-hmm.
I don't know, Mark. I don't even know if you know this. So I used to write the practical jokes for his show.
You really?
Yes, I used to write the scripts, and I would write the scripts for the show. I have him go into the Mall of America in a scuba dive gear and start going into the little fountain in the middle of the mall and go start taking pennies out of the fountain. All different versions of that. And then I used to write the scripts because there was this lazy producer in New York, and he figured out I could do all the work for him. So I was like his ChatGPT back when I was in college and create practical jokes.
And I would have never in 100 years have ever put that together. So okay, so back up a little bit. So as you're headed into college, what was were you practical joker back then, and you figured out a way to monetize it? Did the opportunity just show up? How did you kind of get to that moment?
So I was very mischievous, and then when I was in college, I wanted to be a producer. And I used to write screenplays and scripts and all that other stuff. I wanted to go to USC, which has this film program called the Peter Stark program. They only take 25 people in the country. So I always migrated towards that. Every summer I would do an internship. I worked for, you guys wouldn't know this guy, Mark would, Michael Moore, who wrote this Oscar-winning documentary called Roger and Me. I worked for him for one summer. I worked for NBC, ABC, and internships were the way I used to learn. I had a friend whose dad was a TV producer, so I used to, he used to make connections for me and introduce me for these internships.
And did you, so you're talking about something that we talk about here a lot, the idea of using your network to get where you want to go. So you very early figured out that you could plug into a network and then work your way into other areas using that network.
I think my network is probably one of my one or two biggest currencies I have right now, because things are so easy with AI right now. It's if you know people, it's not what you know, it's who you know is one of the things that I think is really important. And everyone has an opportunity to do that.
Well, we talk here, and they're sick of it already, but they're going to get it more about the idea of reputation and Rolodex, right? Your reputation precedes you, and your Rolodex is the way through or the way in. So you're now you're using you're developing a reputation. You're clearly producing interesting content because it's getting on the air. You're getting market validation. So how did that kind of inform as you're going through college? Did you take college seriously, or was college high school with ashtrays for you in a way just to network your way into the work you wanted to do? And was media where you wanted to start, or how did you kind of get pointed at that?
So I went to business school. I graduated cum laude, and I don't think I went to more than 2 classes. So I didn't take it seriously, but I always got good grades. I thought college was relatively easy, if I'm being honest, but I really didn't work hard. It was kind of a joke. I went to Tulane in New Orleans, guys.
Mm. And so it was more about the experience and the network than it was about the education, because the education seemed easy to you.
Yeah, I learned a lot of lessons of what not to do in college. And when you go to if you guys ever been to New Orleans, there's a lot of vices, temptations. There's gambling, there's drinking. It's very easy to get lost. And I learned about discipline, but I also learned about networking. And I also learned about, there's things that I wish I learned more in college, to be honest with you, because I'm curious now. And like, I'm always hungry for information. But when I was your age, guys, I didn't care about that much, to be honest.
What was driving you at that point?
Fun. Like, I was just trying to have fun. Like, I like, my motivation wasn't getting good grades. I just was lucky that it came pretty natural to me. But I don't think I ever, I'm serious. I don't think I ever went to more than like 2 of my classes. I would go in for the tests. I would study a little bit from home, but I didn't find college really hard. I actually found high school harder.
What do you mean by that? How is high school harder?
I took like AP classes, and do they still have AP classes? Is that a thing? Okay.
Yep.
I took AP classes, and those were difficult. So by the time I got to college, I was taking like environmental history of Southern Louisiana, whatever that means. We're like how to make jerseys for football players, like the most ridiculous classes.
All right. So college is college. You kind of move through, and then where do you drop out into the world post college?
I worked in Times Square for MTV, and at that time, that was like that was the center of the world.
Yep, coolest job on the planet at the time, right? I mean, they were making the culture. So talk about that time at MTV.
So at that time, there was a show called Total Request Live. So it was before things were on social media. So if an artist was about to launch an album, one of their stops, besides the late night shows and all the other stuff, was to go on TRL. There was a guy named Carson Daly. You guys probably have heard of him. Maybe didn't. And he would have the artist on. There would be millions of people in Times Square. I'm exaggerating. There'd be a lot of people. And there would be like an open window, and they would do an interview. They usually do a performance, and it was like the biggest deal in the world. And I was like one of the production assistants. I used to write the scripts for it.
And so that was to what end? As you kind of got going in your career, a lot of these guys are going to be, they're all juniors headed to their senior year. They're all going to go out and try to figure out what they want to do when they grow up. Right. And my big secret to them is don't ever grow up. But once you're past that, so what was your intention? You wanted to be in the media business. Is that?
Yeah. I wanted to be in the media business. I spent 6 months at MTV. I couldn't pay my rent. So I was like, I basically was like, I need to sell out. I like it, but I don't like it that much. So then I went to Wall Street.
So literally you just admitted you sold out. Anyone want to comment on that? I'm kidding. So basically you chased what fed you but couldn't eat. Fair. And
Yep.
So moved to Wall Street. So talk about that shift. And were you able to bring the practical joker in you along to Wall Street, or did you have to leave him behind?
I brought my the creativity that I always had in my DNA to Wall Street, which was very unconventional. Like most people on Wall Street are linear thinkers. They're I need to see something that's happened before, and I can create Excel spreadsheets or financial modeling. And that has never been me. I was more like, I'm going to create businesses within these organizations that never existed before.
So give me an example of that. Like when you arrive, and one of the things is you say that I think to myself, and I know a lot of bankers, and they are linear thinkers. So you walk in the door completely the opposite is how I would describe what you just described. You're really coming at this from a completely different place. So what was the first example of you manifesting that creativity in an environment that really doesn't have any?
So one of the things I think I've always done well is find opportunities and see things that other people don't see. So I saw that in like 2000 to 2010, there were a lot of private companies. They don't want to go public because it's really expensive. So I'm like, why don't I figure out an exchange for private companies to sell their shares before they go and do an IPO, an initial public offering? And I created the first exchange around that. And today it's like Facebook's public, but like, let's say SpaceX, before it goes public, those shares trade. I kind of pioneered that trading methodology when I was at Goldman.
And so you're really entrepreneuring. You're inside of a large entity doing something that has not really ever been done.
Mm-hmm.
How did you, I would imagine there was some headwinds to that. So how did you overcome the objections that would come naturally with, well, we don't do that here?
I'm relentless. Like I won't stop, and I will always. My attitude is I will be appropriately aggressive. I won't be aggressive. I'll be appropriately aggressive, and I won't stop until I can convince someone that this is the right idea. And if they say no, I'll ask them why, and then I'll figure out a way to get them to say yes.
So when I think about that, in the abstract, that's very much a sales mentality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And inevitably, what you're talking about there is selling an idea to someone who doesn't want to buy it.
Yep.
Right. And then you're working to overcome the objection. So what's the balance in respectful persistence versus being persistent to the point where you're annoying?
So in the room right now, there's people that are very academically smart. There's people in the room that have high EQ, and there's people that have both. I would say that my EQ, reading people, is something that just came natural to me. It's hard to teach someone that. Common sense is not so common sometimes. And you have to read people and you have to figure it out. And over time you get better and better. So if you're not good at it, don't worry. If you work hard, you can start to read some sort of signals from people. If you're being annoying, if you're pushing them too hard, and when you're younger, you're probably going to piss some people off. But as you get older, you have to learn from that. So some of it's just experience.
How many of you guys think you have high IQs? It's okay to raise your hand if you think you do. What about EQ? Oh, that. So when you think about EQ versus IQ, and if you had to spend more time working and developing which one of those skills, which would it be?
I mean, that's not a question. I think that EQ is so much more important. You can outsource your intelligence to ChatGPT today. Mm-hmm. That's what ChatGPT, every sort of like just academic person, like the guy that went to Harvard University that has just rested on the fact that he graduated top of his class and he has no EQ, he is fucked right now because that's what's actually being disrupted. You can't replicate EQ. So Angela Duckworth wrote a book about the power of grit. It's one of my favorite books. If you guys want to learn about grit and EQ, I call it scrappy smart.
What's it called?
I think it's Power of Grit. It's by Angela Duckworth.
Okay. I'm going to put that one on the thread. That one I'm going to be reading. So you're inside the big machine, right? You're learning the ropes. You're also, it sounds like breaking some rules. And you're in your mid-20s, right? And you're living La Vida Loca in New York. Talk about kind of that holistic lifestyle. Are you at that point? Are you on your own? Are you married? And what's that life like?
So from 20 to, I would say, 30, everything you guys see in the movies about going out New York City without the douchey, like yuppie, like finance guy. I was never that guy. I don't think people thought of me that way. I was like wearing sweatpants into Goldman Sachs, and everyone was annoyed by me. I kind of went my own path and had a lot of fun. I think your 20s are to figure out what you want to do and get everything out of your system. Your 30s are like when you have to start taking things a little more seriously. And I kind of took that attitude. I look back at my 20s, and it was one of the best times of my life. New York was not as expensive as it is now. You meet many people, and everyone, when I graduated, that's where they would move. So it was like millions of people my age around there. So it was amazing.
And you're sort of getting it out of your system. You have not a lot to lose and everything to gain, right? And you're now growing your reputation and your role again. You're growing the things that you need to grow in your 20s. So as you're sort of moving into the next chunk of your life, and you're only in your late 40s, so you have 20 more years if you want them, right? Doing work at a high level. So coming into your early 30s, were you working a plan that you were running down a road, bless you, specifically to an objective, or were you in your 20s kind of just making it up as you went?
So when I was 29 years old, I got a call from a gentleman that's not so popular right now. He's the Commerce Secretary of the United States working for Trump. He's the guy that you see is involved with the Jeffrey Epstein stuff.
Yeah.
His name is Howard Lubnick.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, before the Jeffrey Epstein thing, he was known because the company he worked at was at the top two floors of the World Trade Center, which I was in on 9/11. And 680 people died that day, including his brother. So they lost like a ton of people. And he called me up and he's like, I've heard a lot of things. I heard you're an entrepreneur. I was 27 when I started the business. He's like, how would you like to run my global business? And I said to him, I'm managing 3 people right now. How many people do you want me to manage? And he said, 2,000 people. And I was like, I don't think I'm ready for that. And he's like, you're fine. Let's go out for a drink. And he convinced me. And 2 weeks later, I was managing 2,000 people, and I was the global head of capital markets for Cantor Fitzgerald.
Shit, dude. So, okay. So you're like, that is the deep end of the pool times 10. I mean, that is the very deep end of the pool. So how did you, I want to take a side road to imposter syndrome for a minute. How many days did you wake up kind of during that time where you're like, oh, how the hell did I end up here? And I really have no business doing this.
So we're being honest in this room.
We are.
Never. I have this part of my brain where I should have that agency and guardrail, and I don't. Like I just go. I just keep going, and I don't really think about that. And that's both my superpower and my flaw. It never even fazed me. I'm just like, just keep going.
So when you describe the to me, I always think about it, your superpower is also your kryptonite. So what's the kryptonite part of that lack of filter, for lack of a better way to put it?
I sometimes look before I leap. Sometimes I just go into something, and then afterwards I'm like, shit, what did I get myself into?
Can you give me an example of that?
Yeah, I mean, I was sitting across from Howard, and he was a very, very tough boss. I was working till like 2 a.m, 3 a.m. I was 50 pounds. I was 40 pounds more than I am now. I was getting really fat. I was unhealthy. I was engaged at that point to my wife. I was bringing it home. So like, yeah, there was a lot of things I really didn't love about it.
And in a way, you were sort of the as you sort of described it. Would it be Wolf of Wall Streety? Was it that extreme?
It wasn't that extreme, but it was a commission shop. So you guys ever hear the expression "eat what you kill"? So when you're at a place that's not a salary place where it's a commission shop, human beings' nature is like it's like gladiators. Like everyone's just fighting to make money. A lot of elbows, and I had to manage all that.
So in that, and you know, a lot of folks in this room are artists, right? And which is a very heart-centered thing. So where does the heart factor in a room like that, or does it not?
The reason I left Wall Street, and we'll get to in a second, and I started a startup, is like I was sick of. I wanted to see people, not numbers. I didn't feel like I really had that much purpose in my life, and I didn't find it fulfilling. And I was tired of creating businesses for other people.
Yeah. So essentially, you're in a pirate ship full of killers, not having a very good time. And I don't know what just happened to whatever. Somebody just left the room. I think that was the AI. I think it was the AI. Don't worry, we have a backup. And so you're in this room full of killers. You decide you want out, and that's the moment where. And you said it this way. I got tired of creating businesses for other people. So how old were you, and what was that moment where you decided I'm fucking done with this?
So it was about 10 years ago. So I was about 38. And I kept having I'm always coming up with ideas. I'm like I'm like Kramer from Seinfeld. I'm always thinking about like the next idea. And I was like, okay, I met with this guy for dinner, and he told me that very similar to Mark, he went on in front of the class and he wrote, I'm thinking about doing a startup. And he told me that every year he starts the class by that. And he says, if you're thinking about doing a startup, you're not doing it. So he crosses it out. And it kind of resonated. I know it sounds very simple, but it resonated with me because like, I'm sure you guys know people like this. Like, hey, I got an idea. And it's always the guy that has the idea. And like, you're going to have friends like that and they're never going to do shit. The real people are actually going to be like, I'm going to have the courage to actually do it. And like, I just had a kid. I took a big risk. And sometimes in life, there's more of a risk not to taking a risk. And I was like, I'm just doing this. And back to what I was saying before, I don't have that agency to be like, okay, Jared, you shouldn't do this. This is like, you got a good job and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, fuck it, I'm doing it.
And so what was that idea? What was the thing that got you kind of off the dime and jumping into the deep end of the new pool?
So I was looking at like all these different things, and I realized in the housing market, there are all these people that are trapped in their homes, and the only way they can get the money that's the value of their home out is to sell their home. And I'm like, I got to figure out a better way. And like one day I was like, one of the things I'll do is I'll sometimes pull an all-nighter, and I'll literally sit here and I'll just be like, okay, and I'll just keep ideating. And I was like, I got it. And I came up with this idea that I'm going to go to every homeowner in the United States and I'm going to offer them the opportunity to sell their home to me, rent it back. And when their situation improves, they could buy back the home. I'll take care of taking care of all their home, the taxes and all that. And they can get the benefit of selling without having to move. And like we changed like thousands of people's lives. We became the 10th biggest owner of homes in the country. We raised $1 billion. We were rated the Inc. 5000's best place to work. I won like 25 awards. Our company was worth like over $1 billion. We grew to $100 million in revenue in 4 years. So It was like, and it was nonstop. But the problem is when you're on top, people want to knock you down.
Mm. So talk about that growth, right? I mean, that is a fast growing entity. And when you think about the building a business, in my mind, at the core of building a great company are the people that operate it for you. So can you talk a little bit about building that team and what you look for? So a lot of these, like I said, a lot of these guys are going to be looking for a place to land, and not all of them are going to get jobs working in music, and less of them are going to be real recording artists, right? So what when you think about kind of the abstracts of what you're looking for when you're building a team, and then talk a little bit about the psychology of that growth, because you went from, I mean, you started it in you sitting there ideating, right? And then that turned into how many people over that 4-year period?
I think we had over like 400 people at the peak.
Mm-hmm. And you grew, but you grew pretty rapidly. So can you talk a little bit about how that growth, the pace of it, the tension of it, how you learned to move from kind of early days, right? When you can control the culture, and because you can touch everybody in the business, versus when you have 400 people, it's much different. It's a much different thing to manage.
So I think that the key is, one, to answer your first question, there's 3 things I usually like. I like to hire. Like my 3 biggest preferences are people that have PhDs, not PhDs like you guys think, poor, hungry, and driven because they have grit. People that served in the military, and athletes because they all have the discipline. I look for people with EQ. I don't like to hire people from Ivy League schools because they're usually pompous, and I just like driven people. So the way I kept the culture together is every once a week, we would have like a meeting as the company, and we would basically do some non-business things together, like create a theme, and we would all talk about it. And I created a mentorship program where everyone learned about other departments. We just did a lot of things outside the box. I thought it was important to get people in person together. And I took the attitude that I work for the people in my company, they don't work for me. And if you take that attitude, you'll have loyalty for life.
I had when I was in college, I paid for most of my college spending a summer working in the fishing industry in Alaska. And I worked for a guy, I started on boats, and after I watched a guy get drugged 200 feet down in a set net, I decided that my life was worth more than I could earn there. And so I went ashore and worked for a guy at Ward's Cove Canneries, and the guy gave me one of the best lessons I've ever had as in business, which is there's nothing in this place that I will ask you to do that I will not do myself. So that's kind of what you described. You took the trash out, is what you're talking about.
I took the trash out, but I also treated the people like I worked for them. I didn't take the attitude. I didn't boss talk them. If anything, I felt like I needed to serve them.
How many of you guys consider yourselves PhDs in this room? Not the PhD, the traditional PhD, but the kind he just described. What was it? Poor, hungry, and driven?
Mm-hmm.
PhDs? That's where I come from, right? And was that's a markedly different sort of attitude than a lot of people have, right? A lot of people are looking for real PhDs. And obviously in all that growth, that served you really well. So when that company, as that company grew, right, there was a natural point where you were going to find an exit from it. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So in 2023, you guys probably read, there was a severe spike in inflation and the housing market became very sensitive. So people started not being able to pay their rent. When they couldn't pay their rent, there's a bad people do bad things, stupid people do stupid things, and desperate people do bad and stupid things. If you guys learned anything today, never forget that. There's nothing more dangerous than desperate people. And unfortunately, at certain points when things got, and it's actually gotten worse since then. So I had to start dealing with litigation, regulation. It just not became fun for me anymore. So I ended up selling the portfolio. It wasn't the exit that I I wanted. I had to deal with a lot of litigation. And honestly, the hardest lessons in life are the best lessons in life. Like the hardest things in life are the best lessons in life. I've learned more, and I wouldn't say they were failures or mistakes, but they were definitely obstacles. And like those are lessons because it gives you more and more grit. You learn, you become humble. And I believe there are those that are humble and those that will be humbled. So being arrogant is one of the worst things you can be.
And so 23, so basically you grew that business to a substantial value, and then it retreated is what it sounds like, based on market forces, right? We could have a separate conversation. We can have a separate meeting about that, you and I. I'm about to sell a business to somebody else for pennies on the dollar, which pains me to no end. But to your point, the lessons learned in failure, I think, are stickier. They're harder to they're better, but they're not fun. So you're in that moment, right? And you're having to kind of walk your way through that. We're back to this idea of, you said you didn't have imposter syndrome, but what was that like to go to get way up and then to watch that thing start to disintegrate?
It was horrible because the thing that motivates me is not money, it's my kids. And my kids saw me stressed every day. Like like telling them that things weren't going well, because I'm always honest with my kids about stuff to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. I was under so much pressure. I had employees, I was dealing with customers, and the weight of the world felt like it was on my shoulders. And of course, health issues and all that other stuff is much more important, but everything's relative, right? If you're going through a situation like that and you work almost a decade and you do all these things and everyone's proud, it's just really hard, but it's part of life. Like nothing is constant and nothing is ever a straight line. It's almost impossible.
Yeah, I've been spending a lot of time reading Marcus Aurelius, and what's interesting about reading him is here's a 3,000-year-old text, and I read it and it's like, that's happening to me right now, right? And the common features of the human experience, despite where you are on the timeline, are pretty interesting. So this notion that you are dealing with something that feels very much like it's never happened before and never will again. I don't know what's going on outside. Sorry, somebody's running a hot rod out right next to us. That you're dealing with something that feels very unique to you, and yet it's not unique at all. And there is this lesson in it, but you're having to learn it yourself as opposed to read about it or experience it in a sort of in a very personal way versus a very abstract way. As you are going through that, when did you kind of see that the light at the end of the tunnel was not an oncoming train anymore? And then let's talk about kind of the transition out and a little bit into where we are now, or we're closing in on more of today.
I would say when I sold the portfolio and everything was done, it took about a year to figure out if it took a year for me to get back to normalcy. I was literally physically in excruciating pain every day, because I don't know if you guys know this, but there's a lot of mind body issues. Like I think 50 million people in the country, that's the stat, have stress induced pain all over their body. You guys are too young for it, but it will happen to some of you guys. And it was literally, I couldn't, like, I would have to leave work in the middle of the day because I was in so much pain, but it was the stress. And once I started to figure it out, and to Mark's point, like, I'm a huge fan of Marcus Aurelius. I've read Meditations. So for you guys that don't know what that means, it means you can only control what you can control. Like, everything else is just noise. So if you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend and they cheat on you and like they're going to go out and do whatever they're going to do. You can't control what they're going to do, but you control how you respond to it and how you're going to frame it in your mind. And I promise you, your life will be a lot better if you start taking that attitude. It sounds very boring. Like I would probably fall asleep if someone gave me a lesson on philosophy, but I think stoicism, that's what it's referred to, is one of the most important things you can learn.
Yeah, and I think, you know, and I think in a lot of ways, you know, you and I are cut from the same cloth. I think about the idea that for a long time I was a human doing, right? I was not really a human being, and I was chasing a set of things that I thought were important until the things that were really important were taken from me. Right. And it was that wake up call that led me to a meditation practice, that led me to texts like Marcus Aurelius, like the Upanishads, which are Indian spiritual texts. This whole thing about the idea that everything is fleeting and that nothing is static, and that you get fixed on this point, and you say, okay, this is it. Right? We are here, we've got this thing, and then you watch it get dismantled in front of you. And in a way that you can't do anything to prevent it. It's a rude awakening to how little control you have.
Yeah.
So you come through that, and now you're past it. So a year later, you're finally, your body's recovered, you know, you're back to some normalcy. So now, how does that affect where you take yourself next?
I basically said to myself, I'm going to get back on the fucking horse. I'm not going to let some bump in the road define me. And I said to there's Steve Jobs used to have this quote: you don't connect the dots looking forward, you connect the dots looking back. So all these things I've done over the years, back to Mark's original comment at the beginning of this talk, was I raise money from everyone you could possibly think of. Like, one of my biggest investors was actually and all these, like, a lot of people, like the CEO of Zillow, all these institutions, all these interesting people, the Sheikh in Qatar, like. And I'm like, I'm going to figure something out. And I was like, I'm going to go back to what I really was my passion when I was in college, and I'm going to do something in sports media and entertainment. So I got a call. There was a group buying the Tampa Bay Rays. They asked me if I can do the financial engineering for the structure of the team. I did that. And then I said to Tom's son, Connor, who's also, his mom's Nicole Kidman, and I said, let's start a platform to invest in the creator economy. Let's invest in sports media and entertainment and the picks and shovels that actually support that economy. Because what I see happening, and what I saw even a year ago, was with AI and all these large language models, is it's going to be so easy for people to flood people's mailboxes and text messages. The only way people are going to stand out are people that actually have attention. As much as that pains me, because I have a 15 or 11-year-old, and watching them idolize influencers, no offense, guys, I'm like, come on, but it's the future, and you got to embrace the future. You can't fight it. So we formed the Good Group, and it was me, Connor, the president of Def Jams Records, the guy that used to run Vogue and Condé Nast, a guy that ran streaming for Paramount, and we got together and we formed the Good Group.
And so that's one of your big projects right now. What else are you working on?
So the other thing, no, I mean, so basically I work with 27 companies now. I work with one of the founders of Palantir. I work with 4 public companies. I work with seed companies, startups, all this. And I also create companies myself. Over the weekend, I created an app that I've been thinking about a lot for mind, body, stress, called Mindora. And it's built it in like a week. And these days you could do all of it. So I have an incubation company. I have an investment company. I have an advisory business. I have the Good Group. I work with the the raise. So it's like I'm doing everything I love to do now. And I'm looking at very interesting companies. I know you guys are interested in music. So I'm looking at companies that trade royalties for music or create easier ways for artists to emerge. Like we're looking at a company. I looked at a company today called Tone that does royalty exchanges. And then we look at maybe creating a security or an instrument for people's catalogs in music. David Bowie did it many years ago. Elvis Presley did it. And you're going to see more and more of this institutionalization of the music industry.
And do you think that's when you look at those kinds of opportunities, right? So when I think here in a couple of weeks, we're going to have my friend John Ogier come in, and John works for a firm that effectively is buying up IP assets, right? They're called Reservoir. You may have heard of them. A big owner of copyrights, and they look at copyrights as an annuity. Is that an area that you guys are focused on? And is the vehicle for that the Good Group?
Yes. So we look at anything like sort of a derivative of music that's around supporting the industry with technology. Same thing in sports and same thing in the creator economy. So if an artist, if a product wants to pair themselves with an artist, like have any of you guys ever heard of Jerry Rice, the 49? Does anyone like sports here?
Yeah.
Does anyone know who Jerry Rice is? He's like
Rice fan.
Oh, I know Jerry Rice. GOAT receiver.
There you go. So Jerry Rice was my spokesperson in my last company. I became very good friends with him. And he was looking for a product to endorse. So this company, what they do is they match the artist or the athlete with the right product. So that's an example of a business that we would invest in. It's all AI matching, figuring out the right products, figuring out, estimating how much they probably would make, why it's the right decision for them. So we're incubating that one. It's called Forecast Fuel.
Okay, so we it seems like the AI theme will continue throughout to this class tonight. So earlier I asked the question, how many people in here hate AI? And we had a fair amount of hands up. And the discussion was, get over it. You have no choice. Do you believe that as well? Do you believe that that we are at a moment where it's inescapable at this point?
So I taught an AI class at NYU 15 years ago. So I was very early before people knew what AI was. So I've been following it. I used to I used to be an advisor at a coding school. So I've been around it. So I'm not saying this is like one of these like pundits that doesn't know shit about it. And I will tell you that in the last 3 months, what's going on right now, I think is so much faster and scarier than I ever imagined in my wildest dreams. And I think it's wild. And I think if you're not embracing it, you can hate it. I hate a lot of things about AI, but if you don't embrace it, you're screwing yourself, because it like there's no way there. How about this? I can't think of an industry, and I would challenge you guys to think of it, that AI is not going to have an impact on. You could tell me a Broadway performer, I say you're wrong. There'll be robots that could do it cheaper. And I know it sounds crazy, but it sounded crazy 5 years ago when I told people that machines were going to maybe baking hamburgers instead of people, where they were going to delivering food. I was in Miami last week and I'm walking and there's this little box with wheels delivering food, and it's put every delivery guy out of business. The next thing will be the autonomous cars that put every driver out of business. There'll be opportunities, is the good news, but you're going to miss it if you're not embracing it.
So what are the opportunities? Because and in a minute I'm gonna throw you to the wolves here and let them start asking some questions. But the what are the opportunities that are going to come, and what opportunities are going to be lost?
We talked about the attention economy. I think I gave you the reason why it's there. I think if you have unique data, so if you're like taking a survey of every kid your age, what they like. That's where these models are feeding from. So if you have data is more, it used to be cash is king, data is king. And I think the most important thing is going back to what we've been talking about thematically throughout the session is if you have EQ, you have a network and you know how to prompt right, like those things are going to make you stand out. And the people that are just doing sort of linear basic shit are gonna, they're fucked.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to kind of move to Q&A, but before we do that, I want to put the same question to you that I put kind of to everybody who is who comes in and sits with us, and that is this: if you could give your younger self one piece of advice with all the road under you so far, right, at your age, what would you advise your 20-year-old self that you wished you had heard back, that you wish someone had said to you?
I wish I learned more. I wish I wore sunblock. I wish I was I wish that I networked even more. And I wish when I was a teenager, I wasn't such an asshole.
Okay, so I'm gonna slide a little out of the frame and let you guys. Yeah, it's you again. It's always him. And we'll field some questions. And one other quick thing, if are you willing to take emails from these guys if they have questions after the session?
I not only welcome it, I encourage it.
Great. Okay. So questions.
Okay, before the two guys in the front start asking you many questions, has anyone ever told you you look like Roger Federer?
I would say here, I'll send, if you guys email me, I'll send you a picture from yesterday. I would say there's hardly a day that someone doesn't stop me. Every year I go to the US Open, I wear the clothes and people storm me. 2 days ago, I was taking a cab. Like they dropped me off at my apartment building. The guy gets out of the cab and takes a picture. It didn't even faze me. I'll send you guys the picture. And my doorman's like, what the hell? Why is this guy taking a picture? I'm like, he thinks I'm Roger Federer. It happens.
Just throw it up there.
So, does that answer your question?
What?
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely.
Apparently it happens occasionally.
Yeah.
Other questions?
I wanted to ask this question to the speaker before, but we sort of kind of wolf packed them, didn't have time for it. If the AI bubble pops and the quote unquote miracle that they're looking for with AGI never happens, is it still as imperative as, say, the .com bubble? We're learning how to use all that stuff is still important. Or do you?
So can we clarify your question? I'm not sure I understand the bubble popping, because like I think it's already started to pop. And even if it stops here, I think it's you guys ever hear of the term Moore's Law? Have you guys ever heard that before? So it's just exponential. So it's just going to keep getting smarter and smarter. So any basic task that anyone does is right now getting replaced. It's just that you have a population of probably, like, my mom's 77. So from 77 to, I would say, like 50, that generation, unless they're people that are embracing it, once that population ages out, like there's nothing that is a task that someone will pay someone to do, because they would be at a competitive disadvantage. I think the .com era, you had all these inflated valuations that you couldn't justify. I think you could justify the valuations now for AI, and in ways I think people underestimate it.
Can I throw one at you for that? So Jack Dorsey just announced that he was halving the size of his company. He cut a third of the workforce preemptively, under the notion that if he didn't do it now, he'd be too late. And so that affects a lot of the people in this room, right? Who are worried about worried about a job. So what do they do to proactively not be one of that third?
So, if you guys go to my LinkedIn, the pinned article talks about no one is going to save you. And it talks about what you should do, but I'll answer the question. The advantage of it, we talked about a lot of the shitty stuff about AI, so I'll tell you the good news. The good news is it's a level playing field for everyone right now. If you're poor, you're rich, whatever, because everyone could be a boss now. So I was telling you guys I have like 27 clients. I couldn't handle more than 2 clients 5 years ago. It allows me to be a boss. I have a whole company of people that are robots, and you guys can create anything you want. And if you have a good enough idea, you have the opportunity to do that. That did not exist before. So I would say to you, like, whatever you're good at, embrace it and just become a domain expert and double down, double down, double down, become obsessed with it. Don't let it like consume your life, but be passionate about it and you'll figure it out. And you just have to keep iterating until you find a way. And if you take that attitude, you'll be very successful. And there's always opportunities. I don't take the point of view that there's not going to be opportunities. I just think it's going to be so disruptive. I think the economy is going to have a major pullback by it, but I think we'll be fine.
So this is interesting. So when I think about the foundation of the internet was built off of pets.com, which went from $1 billion in value to 6 months later worth goose egg. You're saying that there's a difference between that bubble and this bubble, and that the valuations are justified. What's at the core of why the valuations today are justified versus historically when you see a bubble?
So if you think about every public company out there, you guys can throw one out to me. I usually can find a reason why they're going to go away. And it's all going to just keep feeding to these LLMs. Because like, whether it's Anthropic or OpenAI, they're just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger because they're going to be disrupting and people are going to depend on it. So do you guys know how many people are in the world right now? I don't even know what the population of the world is right
I think it's
now.
like, it's 8 billion.
So if you look at 8 billion and you go to ChatGPT and you ask it how many people are using ChatGPT today and how much they pay, think about how many people are going to pay for subscriptions and how many ancillary revenue streams they're going to get. And I don't think people really understand how big these companies are going to get. They're going to get bigger, bigger, and bigger. So take Salesforce. Do you guys know what a CRM is? It's like a client relationship management system. You guys have heard of Salesforce. I have a client that spent $1 million on a CRM and they were 2 weeks away from launching it. And I sat them in a room and like, do not build this. Like, you want a foundation that you could just keep telling it what to do, not build it on top of a stick shift car. Build it on top of an autonomous car, to use a metaphor. He scrapped it. He got rid of Salesforce, and now he's doing it himself. But he's using Anthropic to do it. That is just one example. If you have an expense management system, why the fuck do you need an expense management system? You could just tell Anthropic to build it for you. If you're a recruiter and you're looking for people, you can build a program to find people, Anthropic. So I don't really know an area where it's not going to be disrupted. You could say, yeah, you can you if you want to get a physical therapist because you have back issues, sure. But you can actually create a program for that too, that the way your mind thinks about physical therapy, it will do it better. Go to Anthropic, those people out of like, you could tell me a driver. I just gave you the example of a driver. A delivery guy can give you an example. So the world's just going to change. But to answer Mark's question, the big guys are going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And if you have that advantage, it's hard to catch up.
And do you think one of the things we talk about a lot, is that the middle is going to get crushed, right? In other words,
I don't think there's really a middle class that much anymore.
Right. You're either on the front of it or you're underneath it, and not much in the middle.
Yeah. So I think the good news is you guys, like, if you guys like didn't have the access to the network 10 years ago, it doesn't matter anymore. You guys could do whatever the hell you want. You just got to do it. It goes back to like the example I gave you with that guy that says, I'm thinking about doing a startup. Right now, how old are you guys on average?
20.
So like right now, you guys at the age of 20 can start any business you want and you have the opportunity to become a billionaire, where you could change the world, where you could do something good. It's just got to figure out what the world needs right now, and then you can sell it, you can embrace it, and sure, these companies can copy it. But if you build a moat around the distribution, you're going to win. And there's always hacks and ways to do it. No one thought that Google can ever be disrupted because how are you going to disrupt a search engine? OpenAI did that. No one thought that Nelson Rockefeller and the railroads going to be disrupted. In the 1970s, no one thought IBM was going to be disrupted. It's happened time and time and time again. And the people that did it were poor, hungry, and driven most of the time.
PhDs.
Correct.
Other questions? Is everyone thoroughly depressed?
Yeah.
I'm not
Well,
doing,
you've done a great job thoroughly depressing them.
so guys, this is what I would say to you. I'm not telling you guys to depress you. I'm telling you guys because you guys have an advantage to embrace it. The people that should be depressed are the people my age that have been doing insurance adjusting and accounting for the last 30 years. They're the ones that are screwed. You guys,
That's not.
you guys have like the opportunity to like, you have a blank piece of paper and you could do whatever you want. If you guys are into music, people are always going to want music. I understand that you can create songs with AI, but that's not what people are going to want. They're going to want creativity. And it's always something that what AI does is it looks at things that happen and figures out pattern recognition and builds it. How about if you create a new pattern? How about if you create a new business? How about if you do something that people need on the relationship side? What are people gonna need, understanding that this is gonna get more and more and more automated? That's what you guys have to think about. So you guys should be inspired. The world is full of stupid people. The masses are asses. And if there weren't stupid people in this world, you wouldn't have an advantage to exploit it in a good way, saying, you're smarter than most people in the world. That's why your guys are in this class. I would find it hard to believe if you're not. So take advantage of that and come up with an idea, come up with a business. And if you can, find someone that's smart and partner with them. Be resourceful, figure it out, have grit, but don't give up. Don't have a pity party over it. Embrace it and get comfortable being uncomfortable. Does that make sense to you guys? So what are you guys most worried about?
That's a complicated question.
Let's try to unpack it.
About like in what
Environmental
field?
collapse in the next 10 years?
Death.
Death, dying.
Because like
What comes after life?
the current situation with LLMs, they use a lot of water to cool things, and there's no good alternative other than clean water to cool them down efficiently. And the way that they use the water, it ends up becoming incredibly polluted and it doesn't go back into the environment in a clean way where people can drink it again. There's been like estimates that in like the next 10 years, we're going to run out of clean water.
Yeah, and you actually brought this up. I think this is interesting. Can we talk about water for a minute?
Yeah. So I probably know more about water than most people because I grew up around it. And you guys are not going to like this answer, but don't worry about it. I'll tell you why. Because as things get worse, the level playing field, there's going to be solutions that are going to offset it. There's going to be new things that are going to figure it out. I understand, like, when you turn on the news and you see all these morons ruining the world, it's scary. But I promise you, when I was in the World Trade Center on 9/11, I remember my dad said to me, after I watched 2 planes hit the building and I watched all my friends die, no one's ever going to fly an airplane again. They flew airplanes. The banking system was going to die in 2008. And every time everyone says it's different, people have short-term memories, humans are resilient, and we're going to figure it out. So I understand the science around pollution and the environment, But the good news is there's a lot of technology, and AI is actually going to help solve that, because it's going to hopefully get closer to a cure for cancer. It's going to figure out ways to mitigate pollution. People and like the world of autocrats and democracy and all that stuff, it all comes in cycles. And sometimes people have to suffer a little bit to realize. You guys ever hear the expression, good times create weak men and tough times create strong men? And it's a cycle. So usually when you see these things happen, it's usually like when the economy's good and things are good. And then you have to suffer a little bit, and then people start to reset. And then there's a swing the other way. So there will be a push for the environment. There will be a push to figure out solutions. There will be a push for all the things you guys are worried about. I'm telling you, I can't promise you that, but I'm telling you sincerely, I do believe that. And that's just one man's opinion. And all I have is perspective and experience. And I've seen a lot of stuff.
Any other questions? Nothing? All right, go.
This is some advice just in general. How would you say to prepare, besides just embracing an AI and making yourself economically desirable, when the economy inevitably has that rubber band effect from AI propping it up? How would you say for people that aren't multimillionaires and can just, hold everything in trust, to hold on for that and to continue to grow as things deteriorate for a second?
Sorry, what's your name?
Alvin?
And Alvin, what if someone asked you what you're passionate about, what would you say is like your biggest passion?
Composing music.
Okay, so if I was you, I would find where the best people in your area are that are composing music. I would get an internship, and I would try to make all the thought leaders in the space your best friends. And I would, whatever your story is, embrace it. If you don't have access to a network, honesty is one of the most underrated things. And the second thing I would say is most people always go to like the people that work in HR, or like the line people, always go to the top and be bold. Most people don't do that. And just tell your story and figure out a way to get there. If you study most entrepreneur story, they always do something bold, but it's early enough that do a summer internship for a composer. Like tell him you'll get his coffee, and like you got to do the hard work to do it. That's my advice to you. Is like those opportunities haven't changed. And composing, of course, like you can get help from AI, but again, I think there's going to be a market for original composing and all that stuff. So embrace it. Be the best at that you possibly can be, and you like it anyway. So figure out who your idols are and get in front of them.
We have a one of the units in this class is called Mission Possible, and it's finding someone who seems out of reach, who has what you want, and finding a way to get in front of them. And actually, you guys have probably done better at this than any class I've had in the last umpteen years, right? They're kind of killing it. And so I think that, when I hear you describe this and it feels like the room is like, oh my God, the fucking world is over. Yet I hear in what you're saying, it's really not. And this is a little Marcus Aurelius, right? It's like, this has been going on forever. These things that we think it's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. I'm sorry, I'm making an REM vague REM reference, but like this is a feeling that everybody's had forever, and yet we're still here. The resilient species is incredible.
Go ahead.
Go.
If you guys were sitting and it was 1945 right now, we're 44, you guys would be a lot more depressed because Hitler was taking over the world. Like they didn't know if he was coming to the US. He was killing all these people. That was a scary time. Right now, it's just you guys, it's the fear of the unknown. And guys, I promise you, if you embrace it and you have a positive attitude, like there's going to be prompt masters, people that know how to prompt better than anyone else. You have to know what to do. That's why creativity is important. And you guys are in this is music. So you guys have that part of your brain. That's why I feel comfortable telling you guys that you guys are in that like 1% category that are not screwed. You're going to be, not only I think are you guys going to be fine, I think you guys are going to excel. So if you're walking at it today and you're like, we're screwed, you're not screwed. A lot of people are screwed, but it's not going to be you guys. And you could change the world because you're going to have an advantage. And you could do good things. You could create charities, but you also can do your, like Alvin was saying, his passion's composing. I don't see any reason why AI is going to get in the way of that.
All right. I think, did you have something? You look like you were about to.
No, it's just the fact that I literally had a conversation with Cameron 2 days ago, and she just sort of kind of was like, well, you know, the music industry is going to shit, but good luck, buddy. Like, and that's sort of kind of his motto. That has been his, since I met Cameron, he has said that to me almost all the time.
Talking about the guy that runs the program.
Yeah, he basically says the music industry is not your friend, and but he then goes and says, you guys are the ones that are gonna fix it. But we got to figure out how the hell to fix it.
Sorry, what's your name?
Sam,
What's the guy's name that gave you the advice?
Mark Tavern.
he runs this program and
So-
has years.
Yeah. So I think Mark's actually doing you a favor, and it's not going to be the reason you want. Like, let him scare people so they don't go into the industry because it's going to be less competitive. And I actually think he's wrong, respectively.
I mean, it's the fact that it doesn't scare me because, in my opinion, fuck it, whatever is what I love. Why are you laughing?
Gritty. She's gritty.
Like, I've been doing this for long enough of being, I've started this industry long ago. I started working in it. So whatever, I put myself in this position in the middle of high school. I sort of kind of knew this is where I was going to go.
Yeah.
When-
Go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
When was the last time most people were right? Like being a contrarian is good. And I knew before you even answered my question that you were going to say it's not going to stop you, but it's going to stop other people. And the less competition, good. Remember I said the masses are asses and embrace it. So while everyone else is like a deer in headlights and everything's going on and chaos is around, just like be calm and just keep going the path. And respectfully to Mark, I think he's wrong.
Yeah, and what I was, I mean, you know, what's interesting about this is when you think about the idea that the opportunity actually exists in the chaos. That's
Yes.
when shit really can get interesting. If you're fearless, if you're gritty, if you're willing to say, "Fuck it, I'm gonna do it anyway." Right?
You gotta stick out the chaos.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
it's what my
exactly right.
parents do. Like, it's, you know, you got to figure it out. My parents do diamonds, so like, look at lab grown diamond business. Like, my parents still sit there and they sell lab grown diamonds if they really want to. People are like, this is what we want. The other diamonds are killing children, but you know, the real diamonds are where the money is at, and you have to sit there and you sell the real. It's just the whole thing. Like, you know,
Mhm.
you gotta look through the chaos. You gotta get there eventually.
Anything else?
Mark, could I say something just about what she just
Please.
said?
Yeah.
There was it pains me to say this, it's cringy because it's a Wall Street term, and I know how people outside of Wall Street think about Wall Street. There was an expression on Wall Street: when there's blood on the streets, embrace. And it's to Mark's point, when there's chaos, that's when there's always opportunities.
Hey, thank you for doing this and doing it blindly. I didn't give you a lot of upfront, which was kind of intentional, and I really appreciate your bluntness and your honesty. And I love hearing your story, and I hope everyone in here took a little something away from it.
I thank you. You guys are very lucky to have Mark. There's not a lot of, you guys know this, there's not a lot of folks like him, and it's my honor to help you guys if you guys want it. And I'm honored to have the opportunity to tell you guys my story. And hopefully there's one thing you got out of it today.
I hope so. And thank you again, and we'll be in touch.
All right, bye. Bye, guys. Good
Be
luck.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.